Good morning, everyone. So this morning I'll present the results of a study conducted this year among female sex workers in Nsanje district in the southern region of Malawi. So according to a systematic review, female sex workers are 14 times more likely to be infected with HIV than adult women in the general population. They face greater risks of physical and sexual abuse, stigma, health issues, limited access to health care and support. And being highly vulnerable, this group requires a specific approach. And Malawi, being a landlocked country in the Southeast Africa, is one of the lowest resource countries in the world. The HIV prevalence among adults of 15 to 49 years is estimated at about 11% at national level and 14% in Nsanje. Nsanje has a large number of male workplaces and trade routes, leading to a large number of women engaged in sex work. And MSF, Female Sex Worker Project, is a community-based female sex work peer-led intervention aiming to provide comprehensive care. So in the survey, among the female sex workers, the objectives were to estimate the HIV positive awareness, prevalence of HIV, as well as syphilis, gonorrhea, and chlamydia, and also to assess the coverage of their needs. Further, the objectives also were to describe the HIV cascade of care, and also to assess the behaviors related to prevention and to measure the incidence of sexual and gender-based violence, which are also defined as having sex or sexual practices against their will. The survey was a cross-sectional study conducted between February and April in 2019 in 3 sites. And the following were invited to participate: women aged 13 and above, and also who had lived in the district in the last 6 months, and those who had sexual intercourse with someone other than their main partner in exchange for money or goods in the last 30 days. A standard questionnaire was administered. HIV and syphilis rapid tests were done on site, and gonorrhea and chlamydia lab tests were done. And CD4 count plus viral load were measured for all HIV positive participants. A respondent-driven sampling model was chosen for the study. This is a chain reference sampling system or method where participants recommend other people they know. It's a useful method for sampling hard-to-reach populations. It starts with a small number of peers called seeds. Participants are recruited through successive waves of peer recruitment. And in this regard, participants receive the 2 parts incentive for their time and transport. There are many waves as needed to reach the sample size of 350 participants. For analysis, the seeds were excluded and the accrued RDS adjusted proportions were calculated. So 18 seeds were selected in total, and this graph represents the recruitment chains of one of the study site, and each dot represents a participant. And so the size of the circle or dot changes according to the network the woman or participant is connected to. And the color coding is based on the HIV status, the purple for HIV positive, and the green for those that were negative. And for this site, as we can see, there were 5 seeds, and they led to between 4 to 7 waves, and some waves were wider and some were longer. So in total, 389 women were screened, among which 26 were classified to be not eligible. So a total of 363 participants were included in the analysis. This slide presents the main characteristics of the population. The median age was 26 years old, and 23% of the study population was 19 years old or less, and 80% of the participants were single. Most of the participants were mothers, with 76% who had at least a child born alive. 79% of them always lived in Nsanje, therefore we can say the population was not mobile. And among the participants included, 64% were already receiving care from MSF. Here are some characteristics related to the sex work. The median period of sex work was at 4 years, and participants were mainly paid with money, food, and goods. The main locations used for providing sex were booked rooms, homes, and bush. The main reasons given for starting sex work were the need for money, primarily, and in particular to support their family, and after being abandoned by their husband or family, or in a situation where their husbands passed away. And regarding the frequency of the sex work activity, 46% declared having more than 7 clients per week, and 60% declared having 3 to 4 clients per day on a working day. And here is a combined few characteristics regarding sexual and violence and prevention. 48% of the participants reported at least an experience of sexual violence in their life, and 60% of them had experienced it 1 to 2 times in the last month. 8% of the participants reported to have ever been abused by a police officer. And among these, those that considered never used a condom, only 63% had used one last time. Among HIV-negative participants, only 38 reported to have ever used post-exposure prophylaxis. And less than half of the population, about 47%, as I said, was consistently using a condom with their clients. The overall prevalence of HIV was 52%, and the graph depicts the prevalence of the population by age category. And as we can see, the prevalence strongly increases with age, and after 35 years old, more than 80% of the population was HIV positive. And here's, I present the cascade of care graph. The denominator remains the HIV positive participants for each of the prevalence. And among the participants that tested positive, 95% of them knew their status. And this is the first bar of the graph. And the second bar of the graph represents the prevalence of those receiving treatment, which is at 95%. And finally, as we can see in the third bar, 81% had their viral load suppressed. And regarding STIs, 13% were detectable to chlamydia and 10% to gonorrhea. And lastly, the 30% of the participants were found syphilis positive. So it may not go without saying, our study has some limitations. First difficulty we came across during the implementation was recruiting seeds that were outside the MSF network, as well as recruiting young female sex workers. And therefore, the representation of the real population of sex workers is questionable. The introduction of incentives into the community, which is part of the method process, could also create a bias, as forced sex workers might have presented themselves. And finally, the RDS process is based on many assumptions, among them being non-preferential recruitment through the waves, which should be respected, but this is difficult to control. However, the RDS convergence analysis with respect to HIV prevalence and age indicated that the sample composition reached equilibrium, and thus supporting the robustness of the results. Our findings suggest a population with high exposure to sexual violence, insufficient condom use, and low use of PAPE. They also show a relatively high prevalence of HIV, increasing with age. Participants demonstrated a high awareness of HIV positive status and high linkage to care. And our findings show the extreme vulnerability of these women who are living in a situation of structural violence. They reinforce the need for specific interventions for this group. In this respect, the importance of designing programs targeting sex workers and the focus on adolescents. And on a lighter note, there is a long-term European Union-funded program that's targeting sexual and gender-based violence in the district where the study was conducted and 3 other districts. Finally, I would like to appreciate all the people who contributed to the implementation of the study, in particular the study team members, MSF in Malawi, as well as the authorities of Malawi. And finally, I would like to express our gratitude to the participants of the study. Thank you.